In the quiet village of Eldergrove, a soft breeze whispered through the trees, carrying the sweet smell of blooming flowers. The sun was just beginning to set, casting a golden light across the cobblestone paths. Children played outside, laughter filling the air. But one little boy was not part of the joyful scene. This boy was Leo, a curious and adventurous 7-year-old with bright blue eyes and tousled brown hair. If you enjoy this video, please like the video and subscribe for more, and tell me where you are watching from today. I always find it awesome to see where all my viewers are watching from. Let's get back to the video. Today, however, curiosity had led him astray. Leo had always been told to stay close to home, to never wander too far. But today, while chasing after a colorful butterfly that danced just out of reach, he had ventured deeper into the woods than ever before. With each step, the sounds of the village faded, replaced by the rustling leaves and distant calls of birds. At first, it felt exciting, but as the trees grew thicker and shadows loomed larger, Leo began to feel a creeping sense of fear. Looking around, he realized how quiet it had become. The laughter of children was gone, and only the sound of his own heartbeat echoed in his ears. He turned in circles, hoping to spot something familiar. But everything looked the same. Shadows stretching across the ground, branches waving like ghostly arms in the fading light. Panic started to rise in his chest. What if I can't find my way back? He thought desperately. He wandered further into the woods, calling out for his mother. "Mom, where are you?" But only silence answered him. Leo felt small and alone in this vast, dark forest. Just when he thought all hope was lost, he noticed a flicker of movement nearby. A flash of bright colors caught his eye. Someone was coming toward him. He took a step back, feeling unsure of what to expect. The figure emerged from the shadows, revealing a girl around his age with flowing red hair and kind green eyes. "Hello there," she said with a warm smile. "You look like you could use some help." "I'm lost," Leo admitted, his voice trembling. "I can't find my way home." The girl nodded, understanding his fear. "Don't worry. My name is Mia. I know these woods well. Let's get you back home." Relief washed over Leo as he looked into Mia's friendly eyes. She seemed brave, and her smile made him feel safe. He felt like maybe everything would be okay after all. As they began to walk together, Mia kept Leo's spirits high by telling him stories about the magical creatures that lived in the forest. She spoke of fairies that glowed like stars and talking animals that could understand human language. Each tale sparked excitement in Leo's heart and momentarily took away his fears. "Did you know there's a fountain that grants wishes if you find it?" Mia said playfully, her eyes sparkling with mischief. "Really? I wish I could see it," Leo replied, momentarily forgetting the worry about being lost. Mia laughed. "Maybe we will if we have time. But first, let's focus on getting you home." They trekked deeper into the woods, following a small trail that wound between tall trees. As they walked, Mia kept an eye on the sky. It was turning a deep purple-orange as dusk approached. She knew they needed to hurry before night fell completely. Suddenly, a chill ran through the air, causing Leo to shiver. The gentle rustle of leaves turned into something more ominous. A low growl echoed nearby. Both children froze in place as they glanced around nervously. "What was that?" Leo whispered, gripping Mia's hand tightly. "I don't know," she replied softly, glancing into the growing darkness around them. The comforting stories she had told him now felt far away, replaced by a new wave of fear. They pressed onward, but it was hard to ignore that something felt wrong. The shadows seemed to stretch longer than before, and an eerie silence settled over the woods. Just when Mia thought they might be nearing safety, she caught sight of something moving in the distance, a tall figure with an ominous presence. No, she breathed as her heart raced. They were not alone anymore. Before she could react further or reassure Leo, the darkness shifted again, and she realized they were in grave danger. The Vampire King had arrived with his army. Mia sensed Leo's fear as he gripped her hand tightly, his small frame trembling in the cool air. She could feel the weight of the shadows pressing down around them and knew they had to stay strong. "Don't worry, Leo," she said calmly. "I've been in these woods many times. We'll find our way back." As they began to walk again, Mia glanced around to make sure no dark shapes lurked among the trees. "It can be spooky out here at night," she admitted with a soft smile, hoping to ease Leo's fears. "But I know some great stories that can help us forget about it." Leo looked up at her, his blue eyes wide with curiosity. "Stories?" he asked, momentarily distracted from his worries. "Yes, stories about bravery and friendship," Mia said excitedly. "Once upon a time, there was a brave knight who protected his village from a fierce dragon. He wasn't strong or big, but he had a kind heart and loved his friends more than anything." As she spoke, Leo's imagination took flight. He pictured the knight in shining armor riding on a mighty horse, facing the dragon with courage and determination. "What happened next?" he asked eagerly. Mia continued, weaving tales of how the knight used clever tricks instead of brute strength to outsmart the dragon, teaching Leo that bravery comes in many forms. With each story, Leo found himself forgetting about being lost and scared. Instead, he felt a sense of adventure welling up inside him. "Can you tell me another one?" he pleaded as they stepped carefully over roots and rocks on the narrow path. "Of course." Mia smiled brightly. There was once a young girl named Alara who lived near a magical forest just like this one. She found a wounded fox and decided to help it instead of running away in fear. Leo listened intently as Mia described how Alara nursed the fox back to health and how they became best friends. Together, they went on amazing adventures, exploring enchanted places and meeting all sorts of magical creatures. Inspired by these stories of courage and kindness, Leo began to feel braver himself. "Do you think we'll meet any magical creatures too?" he asked hopefully. Mia paused for a moment, looking thoughtful. "You never know. The woods are full of surprises." She pointed toward a cluster of flowers that glowed faintly under the dim light filtering through the trees. "Those flowers are known to attract fairies. If we're lucky, we might see one." Leo's eyes widened in wonder at the idea of fairies flitting through the trees. Together they imagined what it would be like to meet such whimsical beings who could help guide them home. As they continued walking, Mia kept their spirits high by sharing more stories that filled their hearts with hope. They talked about brave animals who protected their forest homes and children who stood up to bullies with kindness instead of anger. "Mia," Leo said after some time, his voice softer now but still filled with wonder, "how do you stay so brave?" She thought for a moment before answering. "I believe that being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about doing what is right even when you are afraid," she explained earnestly. "And having friends makes everything easier because you can face fears together." Leo nodded slowly, taking in her words as they walked side by side on their journey through the forest. The darkness around them seemed less intimidating now that he had someone by his side who believed in him. Suddenly, an eerie howl echoed through the trees, sending chills down their spines. The wind picked up slightly, rustling leaves above them ominously. Both children stopped in their tracks as unease settled back into their hearts. "What was that?" Leo whispered again, gripping Mia's hand tighter. "I don't know," Mia replied cautiously, glancing around at the shadows closing in again. Her heart raced as she tried to remain calm for both their sakes. "Let's keep moving quickly." They hurried down the narrow path and tried to ignore the creepy sounds surrounding them, but Mia couldn't shake off the feeling that something dangerous was lurking nearby. Something far worse than any creature from her stories. As they pressed onward through the thickening darkness, Mia felt a chill creep over her skin, as if eyes were watching them from every direction. Just when she thought they might be nearing safety again, an eerie silence fell over the woods. Then she saw it. A tall figure standing among the trees, with an unsettling presence that sent dread washing over her. It was the Vampire King. As Mia and Leo pressed onward through the woods, the stories had briefly lifted Leo's spirits. But the peaceful feeling quickly faded as they continued down the narrow path. The shadows between the trees began to shift in unusual ways, flickering like dark flames. Mia paused, trying to shake off the uneasy sensation creeping up her spine. "Do you see that?" she asked, pointing toward a particularly dark spot among the trees where movement caught her eye. Leo squinted, following her gaze. "I think so," he replied quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. The air felt thick with tension, and his earlier excitement began to wane. Mia took a cautious step forward, her heart racing with both curiosity and fear. "It could just be an animal," she suggested, though she wasn't sure herself. But as they watched closely, the shapes darting in and out of sight didn't look like any animals she knew. They moved swiftly and silently, almost gliding between the trunks of trees like smoke. "Maybe it's the fairies we were talking about," Leo said hopefully, his voice gaining that sense of adventure again. Forcing a smile, Mia tried to share his enthusiasm. "Or maybe something else we should be careful of," she cautioned gently. She felt a shiver run down her spine as another shadow flickered past them. Just then, an eerie howl echoed through the trees again, the sound chilling to the bone. It seemed closer this time, and mingled with a rustling sound that came from every direction at once. Leo clutched Mia's hand tighter, his small fingers trembling against her palm. "What if it's dangerous?" he exclaimed, panic rising once more in his voice. Mia turned to him with a determined look in her eyes. "We need to keep moving," she said firmly, yet reassuringly. "Whatever is out there can't get to us if we stay together." They started walking more briskly down the path, but their surroundings felt increasingly hostile as darkness enveloped them fully. The shapes in the shadows began to take on more defined forms, dark silhouettes that danced just beyond their line of sight, but always remained just out of reach. "Mia!" Leo gasped suddenly, halting in his tracks as he pointed toward a cluster of bushes nearby, where deeper shadows seemed to pulse and breathe with life. Mia peered into the gloom surrounding them and felt her heart race. "It's okay. Let's just—" But before she could finish her thought, one of the shapes lunged from behind the bushes. "Mia!" Leo cried out in fear. Mia stood frozen for a moment, as if caught between fight or flight instincts, before she remembered how bravery didn't mean acting without fear. It meant standing firm even when scared. Gritting her teeth, she positioned herself protectively in front of Leo just as a figure staggered from the darkness. It was a wild-eyed creature resembling a wolf. But unlike any wolf Mia had ever seen before, its fur was matted and darkened by dirt and grime. Its eyes glowed faintly in scary shades of red that seemed fixed on the two children. It let out another low growl, one that sent icy chills through Mia's bones. Leo's breath hitched in his throat as he peeked around Mia's waist, trembling with fear, but unable to tear his eyes away from this peculiar creature. What is it?" he asked, awestruck yet terrified. I think it might be lost too," Mia stammered uncertainly, as if trying to reason with herself. "Maybe it's scared, just like us." Inch by inch, she stepped forward, while keeping Leo behind her. Carefully lowering herself closer to the wolf-like figure without making any sudden movements, she whispered soothing words meant for frightened creatures. "It's okay. There's no need to be afraid." The woeful creature's growl faded gradually into soft whines instead, tentative sounds that echoed their plight shared amongst all lost souls wandering alone in darkness. "See? It understands us." Mia breathed softly over her shoulder at Leo while still maintaining her gaze on what was now an anxious but significantly less aggressive creature. For what felt like forever, under those ominous trees filled with shadows and strange movements all around them, they simply held their ground together. Two brave hearts facing not only their fears, but also whatever unspeakable mysteries lay ahead as they sought their way home through this murky chaos cloaked in nightfall. Suddenly, another shadow darted past them, a massive shape that wasn't hiding anymore. And as they turned to look toward whatever cast this threatening shadow over them now, the air grew colder still when they realized what or who it belonged to. The Vampire King had returned. As the chilling presence of the Vampire King loomed over Mia and Leo, an oppressive silence enveloped the forest. The air grew thick with tension, and the shadows seemed to deepen, wrapping around them like a suffocating blanket. The wild creature they had encountered earlier slinked back into the underbrush, sensing the danger that had arrived. Mia's heart raced as she turned to face the towering figure emerging from the darkness. Clad in a long, flowing cloak as dark as midnight, the Vampire King's pale skin glistened under the faint light filtering through the branches above. His eyes, glowing like embers in a dying fire, locked onto Mia with an unsettling intensity that sent a shiver down her spine. "Why is this girl with my prey?" the Vampire King demanded, his voice smooth yet filled with an icy edge that made it clear he was not to be trifled with. The words echoed ominously through the trees, sending birds fluttering away in fright. Leo squeezed Mia's hand tightly, his small body trembling beside her. She could feel his fear radiating off him like heat from a fire, and she wished she could shield him from this terrifying figure. We were just trying to find our way home," Mia stammered, summoning all her courage to speak. The Vampire King's lips curled into a wicked smile, revealing sharp teeth that glinted menacingly in the dim light. "Home? You think you can find safety in this forsaken place?" He glanced around at the dark woods as if mocking their plight. "You are lost, and now you belong to me." Leo gasped, his eyes wide with terror as he looked up at Mia. "What does he mean?" he whispered, his voice quavering. Mia took a deep breath, trying to remain calm for Leo. "We won't let you take us," she said defiantly, even though doubt flickered in her mind. "We just want to go home." The Vampire King laughed softly, a chilling sound that echoed around them like wind howling through empty halls. "Home is a distant dream for children who wander too far," he said, his gaze unwavering. "And I have no intention of letting you escape." With a wave of his hand, shadows seemed to swirl around him like living smoke, pooling together and forming figures that moved with a life of their own. Creatures that were part wolf and part shadow, their eyes glowing eerily as they emerged from the darkness behind him. "Look out!" Mia shouted, stepping protectively in front of Leo as the shadowy figures advanced towards them with predatory grace. Panic surged through her as she realized they were surrounded. "Stay close to me," she urged Leo, gripping his hand tightly. She could feel his heart racing against her side as they backed away slowly, trying to create space between them and the advancing shadows. "Your bravery is admirable but foolish," the Vampire King taunted, his voice dripping with disdain. "These woods belong to me and my army. You cannot hide or run from what you cannot see." Mia felt a surge of determination rising within her, despite the fear threatening to engulf her. "We may be afraid," she shouted back at him, "but we won't let you control us. We're stronger together." The Vampire King narrowed his eyes at her defiance. Stronger together? How quaint. He gestured again, and the shadowy creatures lunged forward with terrifying speed. In that moment, Mia remembered their earlier encounter with the wild creature, the way it had softened when she spoke gently to it. With quick thinking, she shouted at Leo to stay still and raised her voice above the chaos unfolding around them. "Listen," she called out firmly to the advancing shadows. "We don't mean you any harm. We're just trying to find our way home." To her surprise, one of the creatures hesitated mid-lunge, its glowing eyes flickering uncertainly as it paused at her words. It seemed almost confused by her approach. "See?" Mia whispered urgently to Leo. "Sometimes kindness can break through fear." With newfound hope surging through her veins, Mia continued speaking softly to the creatures, urging them to remember what it felt like to be lost and afraid. "We can help each other," she pleaded. "Let us go home." In that tense moment, as shadows writhed and danced around them and fear hung heavily in the air, something remarkable happened. The creatures began to slow their advance, glancing at one another as if debating whether to heed Mia's words. But just then, the Vampire King raised his hand again in fury. "Foolish girl, you think your words can sway my army? You will regret this." Mia could feel the weight of his anger pressing down on them as darkness thickened around her once more. She knew they had only moments before everything spiraled out of control, and they needed a plan fast if they wanted any chance of escaping this nightmare. Mia felt the weight of the Vampire King's words pressing down on her like an iron fist. The darkness enveloped them, and even Leo's small hand trembled in hers, but she knew they couldn't give up. They had to be clever and quick. Desperation ignited her determination as the shadowy creatures continued to advance. "Leo," she whispered, leaning closer to him so only he could hear. "We need to distract him. If we can get him to focus on something else, we might find a way to escape." "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely a breath. "Just follow my lead," Mia replied firmly, stealing a glance at the Vampire King. His smirk had faded. She could see anger brewing in his gleaming eyes. She needed to act fast. Without a moment's hesitation, Mia raised her voice, putting on a brave face. "Oh, great Vampire King," she called out with exaggerated enthusiasm. "You must be very important. Surely it would be foolish for someone like me to challenge your power." The Vampire King turned sharply at the sound of her voice, surprised at her sudden change in tone. "What nonsense is this? You think flattery will save you?" he sneered. "Oh no, not flattery," Mia cried, her mind racing with ideas. "I simply wonder, what is a gigantic king like you doing with such pathetic creatures? Surely your time is better spent ruling over more fearsome beings." Leo's eyes widened in confusion as he processed Mia's distraction tactic. "But Mia, they are scary," he whispered anxiously. "Just trust me." she muttered back while keeping her eyes fixed on the Vampire King. He's proud. I can work with that. Her words sparked curiosity in the Vampire King's expression, and for just a moment, he seemed intrigued by the girl's audacity. He leaned forward slightly, narrowing his glowing eyes at her. "Speak on then, little girl," he said slowly. "What do you know of my power?" Mia took a deep breath, using every ounce of courage she had left. "You could control so many things. Your army." She gestured vaguely toward the shadowy figures surrounding them. "Is so impressive that it hardly makes sense for you to waste your time tormenting 2 lost children in these woods." The Vampire King straightened slightly, caught off guard by her words, but intrigued nonetheless. "You believe your petty thoughts could move me?" "Yes," Mia insisted boldly, backing slowly away while keeping the Vampire King engaged. "Imagine all the people you could frighten if you focused on bigger prey. Imagine the tales sung about how cunning and wise you are, instead of tales about chasing children." Behind her, she felt Leo tugging anxiously at her arm. Maintaining their connection was crucial without letting go of the plan to escape while drawing the king's attention. Meanwhile, wariness danced in the air as shadows flickered uncertainly around them, sensing a shift in focus, but still controlled by their master. The Vampire King himself, who now cast his full attention toward Mia. With every word Mia spoke, she attempted to lead them further away from danger subtly, mimicking elation in her tone and expression, even while fear twisted within. She aimed for complete distraction. Surely there are valleys stretched beyond these woods, filled with heroes waiting for a true reckoning. At this mention of heroes and glory, she could see something stir within the Vampire King's demeanor. An ember of interest ignited amidst his deep-seated anger. "Is that so?" he mused aloud, visibly intrigued now by the promise of recognition and grandeur that Mia painted through her words. Now was their chance. She nudged Leo gently and whispered urgently, "We have to move quietly while he's distracted. This way." Mia took Leo's hand firmly once more and began to lead him along a narrow path that veered away from the dark gathering of shadows closing in behind them. With their backs still turned toward their menacing foe as they slipped into the dense brush just off the path. "Where are you going?" The Vampire King roared after them suddenly with growing menace in his voice as realization gripped him like icy fingers. Mia pulled Leo along with determination, fueling each hurried step, and they took deeper into shadows, splayed across their escape route. But fear remained wrapped around them, as tight as ever. Rushing through brambles and low-hanging branches, slick with moisture beneath their feet, somehow felt exhilarating. A race against existing dark forces closing ranks behind them. With each step driven by willpower and survival impulsively flooding their hearts, they surged forth through anticipation towards whatever lay ahead, hoping desperately that clever distractions could buy enough time for one last daring escape from looming dread that chased after. Mia and Leo hurried through the dense underbrush, their hearts pounding in unison. The night air was thick with tension as they heard the Vampire King's furious voice echoing behind them, demanding his shadows to pursue. Every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs sent chills down Mia's spine. She could feel Leo's small hand gripping hers tightly, his breath coming in short gasps of fear. "Keep running, Leo. Don't look back," she urged, trying to keep her voice steady despite the terror swirling around them. The shadows seemed alive, flickering in and out of sight among the trees, eager to catch their prey. "Why did we have to go into these woods?" Leo panted, fear evident in his voice. "What if they catch us?" Mia glanced back for a brief moment, catching a glimpse of the dark figures darting between the trees. "They're not going to catch us. You have to trust yourself. Focus on the path ahead." She shouted over her shoulder, her determination bolstering her resolve. With each step they took, the ground beneath them felt both familiar and foreign. A mix of safety from the village and the terrifying unknown of the woods. Mia's mind raced as she tried to calculate their best route. "We need to find a way to lose them," she thought desperately. "If we can just get to that clearing ahead, maybe we can hide." As they ran deeper into the forest, Mia spotted a faint light filtering through the trees ahead, illuminating a small clearing just off the main path. "There, let's go," she called out, urging Leo forward. They veered toward the light, pushing through branches and brambles that scratched at their arms and legs. The moment they burst into the clearing, Mia stumbled slightly as her foot caught on an exposed root. Leo stumbled too, but quickly regained his balance. They looked around desperately for somewhere to hide. The clearing was beautiful, yet eerie, bathed in silvery moonlight that illuminated wildflowers swaying gently in the breeze. But there was no time to admire it. Glancing back, they could see dark shapes pouring into the clearing behind them. "Mia!" Leo exclaimed, his voice filled with panic. "Hide behind that rock," Mia instructed, pointing to a large boulder covered in moss at the edge of the clearing. They dashed toward it, crouching low as they pressed their backs against its cool surface. Breathless and trembling, Mia whispered, "We just need to stay quiet and calm." She could hear the shadows moving closer, their whispering voices filled with malice as they searched for them in the moonlit glade. "Do you think they'll find us?" Leo asked quietly, his eyes wide with fear as he peeked around the rock. "No," Mia replied firmly, although doubt crept into her mind as she listened for any sign of danger. "We're safe for now." Suddenly the shadows paused, their forms shifting and wavering like smoke. "They can't see us if we don't make any noise," Mia reminded Leo in a hushed tone. "Just breathe." In that moment of stillness, Mia felt a surge of courage wash over her. "Leo," she said softly, leaning closer to him, "you are brave. You've faced so much already today. Just remember what we talked about earlier. Being courageous means doing what's right, even when it's hard." Leo nodded slowly, drawing strength from her words. "I want to be brave like you," he whispered back. The shadows began searching again. One dark figure drew closer, brushing past their hiding spot without noticing them. Mia held her breath as she watched its glowing eyes scan the area. Just then, an unsettling howl echoed in the distance, the call of the Vampire King urging his army onward. "Stay still," she warned emphatically as more shadows moved into the clearing. They were close now, too close for comfort. Suddenly, a sharp crack sounded nearby as another branch broke underfoot. The shadows froze, then turned their attention toward the sound. Mia's heart raced as she realized their cover might be blown. "Now's our chance," she whispered urgently. "On my count, 3, 2, 1, run!" They burst from behind the rock and sprinted back into the woods just as a frantic shout from the Vampire King rang out behind them. "Stop them!" The thrill of adrenaline surged through their veins as they dashed through the trees once more. With each stride, Mia felt renewed strength propelling her forward despite fatigue weighing her down. "Just keep running," she encouraged Leo. "We can lose them." With determination fueling their every step, they navigated through a maze of trees and shadows as the chilling sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Together, they pushed onward, hoping to find safety and escape from the menace that threatened to engulf them both. As Mia and Leo raced deeper into the forest, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and adrenaline, they suddenly caught sight of a glimmering light cutting through the trees. It flickered like a firefly, shimmering in shades of blue and green. "Mia, look." Leo pointed, his wide eyes filled with wonder despite the terror that pursued them. "Let's see what it is," Mia urged, her curiosity momentarily pushing aside their fears. The strange light danced between the branches, enticing them to follow. Perhaps it was a sign of something magical that could help them escape the Vampire King's army. They weaved through thick underbrush, drawing closer to the glowing light until they stumbled upon a small clearing bathed in ethereal light. Here, adorned with vibrant flowers and radiant mushrooms, was a group of enchanting creatures, fairies. Their wings flickered like colorful leaves in the autumn wind, and they hovered in the air, gazing at Mia and Leo with curious expressions. "Who dares enter our glade at this hour?" one of the fairies said, her voice sweet yet firm. A crystal tiara perched atop her head sparkled as she flew closer to examine the two frightened children. "We're running away from the Vampire King," Mia replied breathlessly. "We need help, please." The fairies exchanged glances among themselves, their expressions shifting from curiosity to concern. "The Vampire King? He wreaks havoc on our lands," said another fairy with emerald green wings. "He's dangerous." "Incredibly strong," added yet another, flitting nervously at the edges of the clearing. "We don't want to stay here where he can find us," Leo admitted softly, uncertainty creeping into his voice. "But we have nowhere else to go." The first fairy approached them again and gently placed a hand on Mia's shoulder. "Child of courage," she said softly, admiration shining in her eyes. "You attempt to protect your friend even in such great danger." "We would lend our help, but be warned, the Vampire King won't give up easily," she continued firmly. "Together, we may have strength." Leo felt a spark of hope igniting within him as Mia nodded eagerly. "Anything. We'll do anything if you can help us." The fairies quickly conferred amongst themselves before circling back around the children with determination on their tiny faces. "We will create diversions while you escape," announced the emerald-winged fairy decisively. "We know these woods like no other." "But you must hurry," said another fairy urgently. "We can only hold him off for so long." Mia glanced toward the path from which they had come. She could still hear distant echoes of anger as approaches. The Vampire King's shadows were steadily making their way through the trees towards them again. Thank you so much," she exclaimed gratefully as hope swelled in her chest. "Follow us closely," commanded the lead fairy, as they darted ahead into deeper woods, where darkness hung thickly once more. Mia held Leo's hand tightly as they ran after their newfound allies. The fairies weaving through branches like shafts of moonlight, flickering along an enchanted path that seemed to simplify even amidst chaos surrounding them. "Keep up," one fairy called over her shoulder as they sped along an increasingly narrow trail obscured by foliage. Then suddenly stopping beside an enormous tree trunk that seemed ancient and wise. Its boughs stretched wide above them, like welcoming arms, ready to offer shelter. A secretive hiding spot revealing itself amid swirling shadows, inching nearer behind. "This will be your refuge for now," whispered the lead fairy hastily as they ducked beneath sprawling roots strong enough to shield against shadowy lurking forces outside. As they moved cautiously behind this protective barrier, amongst tangled vines while still catching their breath, trying not to make noise above fallen leaves crunching beneath feet. Leo couldn't contain his excitement any longer. "Wow, they're real fairies." "Yes," Mia agreed quietly, yet joyfully. "And they are going to help us." For within moments, shimmering lights began buzzing around them swiftly, while wisps glided gracefully past each other, illuminating darkness all around, creating enchanting patterns drawn by urgent enchantments, bringing magical defenses into effect, prepared against whatever evil encroached outside. "Prepare yourselves," spoke the emerald-winged fairy once more, with renewed vigor, gathering energy near glowing flower petals shimmering brightly nearby. They discovered amidst foliage a blockade against dark approaching shadows, closing ranks swiftly as those charged droplets filled winds rushing faintly, braving semblance deer tusks together, bending fragile plants entwined across earthen birthplace, while rising illusion pulses prepared arose, intend knowing, peril loomed larger overhead, with threats embodied amassing strength looming. Alliance forged came alive there, waiting patiently, holding patterns through intent, remaining hopes clung untouched. In the dim light of the clearing, Mia, Leo, and the fairies gathered closely to strategize against the imminent threat posed by the Vampire King and his army. The atmosphere was charged with a mix of fear and determination as they prepared to defend their home. "Listen closely," the lead fairy said, her voice steady despite the tension in the air. "The Vampire King thrives on fear and darkness. We must unite our powers to create a barrier strong enough to protect us and drive him back." Mia felt a surge of hope at the fairy's words. "What can we do?" she asked eagerly, glancing at Leo, who seemed both excited and nervous. The emerald-winged fairy stepped forward, her eyes sparkling with magic. "You two have bravery in your hearts, which is more powerful than you realize. We will combine that courage with our magic to form a protective shield." Leo's face brightened as he listened intently. "How do we do that?" "We need to focus on what we want to achieve," Mia explained, feeling empowered by her newfound role in this brave alliance. "We want to protect our home and everyone in it from the Vampire King." "Exactly," said the lead fairy with enthusiasm. "Now, let's all join hands and channel our energy together." Mia took Leo's hand tightly in hers, while the fairies flitted around them, forming a circle. They all grasped hands, creating a small but powerful chain of unity. The air shimmered with anticipation as they closed their eyes and focused on their shared goal. "Think of your strongest emotions," the emerald-winged fairy instructed softly. "Think of love for your home, friendship, courage, everything that gives you strength." Mia drew a deep breath, picturing Eldergrove, the laughter of children playing outside their homes, flowers blooming in vibrant colors, and warm sunlight streaming through trees. She thought about Leo and how far they had come together in this journey. She wanted to protect all of it. Beside her, she could feel Leo's small fingers trembling slightly, but he squeezed her hand tighter, as if drawing strength from her presence. He closed his eyes tightly and thought of his family waiting for him back home and how much he longed to see them again. "Now!" shouted the lead fairy as energy began to swirl around them like a soft breeze picking up fallen leaves. "Channel your feelings into one single thought. We stand together." With that declaration, Mia felt a rush of warmth enveloping them all. A golden glow radiated from their joined hands as they concentrated on their thoughts. The fairies began chanting softly in unison, while colorful light swirled around them, creating patterns that danced through the air like fireflies at dusk. It was beautiful, yet potent. Mia could feel its power building within their circle. Suddenly, a deep rumble echoed from beyond the trees, the sound of approaching darkness drawing closer as shadows converged toward them once again. "Quickly, we must finish this before he arrives," urged one fairy urgently. Mia pushed herself harder into their collective effort. She opened her heart wide with gratitude for all who stood beside her. The bravery of Leo beside her, and the unwavering support from these magical beings surrounding them. As they chanted louder together, "We stand together! We stand together!" The light intensified until it burst forth like a radiant sun breaking through storm clouds. In an instant, a shimmering barrier formed around their encampment, a protective dome that sparkled like stars against the night sky. Leo gasped in awe as he looked up at its brilliance. It felt safe, yet powerful, like an invisible shield wrapping around them tightly against any impending harm. But just then came another loud roar, the unmistakable voice of the Vampire King trailing behind his advancing shadows. "What is this?" His voice boomed through the trees like thunder. Rage laced every word that spilled forth from his lips when he caught sight of their defenses glowing bright against encroaching dark forces. Mia's heart raced as she felt adrenaline surge through her veins again. She could sense fear creeping back beneath excitement bubbling inside. But there was no turning back now. They had united for this moment. "We are ready," she declared resolutely towards her friends surrounding her before turning toward the shimmering barrier, standing strong against darkness looming ahead. Together, with newfound confidence igniting every ounce within them, Mia raised her chin defiantly toward whatever lay beyond as shadows grew nearer still. Determined not only to fight, but also protect everything they cherished most fiercely amidst chaos swirling ahead. The air crackled with tension as the shimmering dome formed a protective barrier around Mia, Leo, and their fairy allies. They could feel the power of their combined emotions resonating within the magical barrier. But as the shadowy figure of the Vampire King loomed closer, the moment of calm before the storm erupted into chaos. "Do you think your little lights can protect you from me?" The Vampire King sneered, his voice deep and piercing as he emerged from the darkness with his army of shadows. His eyes glowed like fiery coals set against the night, filled with anger and disdain for the defiance displayed before him. Mia's heart raced in her chest, but she stood tall beside Leo and the fairies. "We will not let you harm anyone," she shouted, summoning courage that flowed from her love for her home and friends. With a wave of his hand, the Vampire King commanded his army to attack. Dark figures surged forward like a swarm of locusts, eager to overcome the barrier that contained them. Mia turned to the fairies. "We have to hold it strong. Channel all your magic into one force." The fairies nodded in unison. Their wings fluttered rapidly as they focused their energy, intensifying the glow of the protective shield. "Together!" Leo cried out, feeling empowered by Mia's bravery and their new allies' strength. They placed their hands on one another and closed their eyes tight, concentrating fiercely on their shared resolve. As shadows crashed against the barrier like waves against a cliff, blue and green sparks flew into the night sky around them. With each impact, Mia felt herself growing more determined. She knew they must stand united. The fairies echoed Leo's words. "Together! We stand together!" Their voices formed a rhythmic chant that resonated in harmony with Mia's heart. Suddenly, one particularly aggressive shadow lunged at them. It seemed to twist in form, breaking apart momentarily before reassembling. It charged at a weak point in their barrier. "Focus on its fears," Mia shouted quickly. "Remember what we're fighting for." Just then, an image sparked in Mia's mind. The joyful faces of children playing in Elder Grove, warm afternoons spent with friends exploring nature's wonders. "Think of home," she urged everyone around her. "Think of what we love." As they did, another surge coursed through them. The barrier glowed brighter than ever before, pulsating with their love and courage against the dark entity's looming presence. Enough of this, the Vampire King roared with fury. I will crush your hopes once and for all. In response to his threat, Mia stepped forward defiantly as fear threatened to creep back into her heart. But standing firm was necessary now, more than ever. You think you can take what is dear to us? She shouted back at him with passion igniting within her voice like fire lighting up a hearth on a cold winter night. The ground beneath shook slightly as more shadows broke away from their ranks behind the Vampire King, dark creatures growing restless under his command, and they began launching themselves toward them again for an even fiercer attempt. Prepare yourselves, commanded one fairy firmly as a powerful wind swirled around them. Leaves rustled violently against each other while shadows loomed closer, threatening invasion through thin lines, separating light from dark. Leo squeezed Mia's hand tighter. He could feel her strength budding within him, radiating hope that pushed through uncertainty gripping at his core. She glanced at him reassuringly, knowing deep down that together nothing could deter them from fighting for everything they cared about. With renewed resolve, burning bright like daylight, stamping out encroaching darkness, Mia raised her voice loud enough. Stand strong. Together we defend what is right. Let love be our shield. At that very moment, a brilliant burst erupted forth. The collective might erupted into dazzling beams, shooting straight toward the advancing shadows, mixing both light and darkness, swirling explosively outward. Now's our chance. Charge! Cried Leo as he felt himself pulled along by Mia toward where pure light burst forth ahead, mixing fiercely, fighting against overwhelming intimidation, planted firmly upon ground, straddling edges separating realms. Charging ahead fueled by adrenaline. They broke through barriers, twisting shapes, manifesting icy tendrils, reaching despairing depths, beckoning towards detainment, past boundaries. Fear dissipated, while unity held stronger, affecting all around, urging them onward, forging paths through uncertainties, lurking dangerously near, demanding confrontation, lying straight ahead, mere moments away. And there it was. The final showdown awaited them now. Unyielding courage would ultimately dictate trajectories carved across impending fates, seeking justice beneath rising tides, urging forth battle cries, echoing throughout night, heralding rapping surfaces alive, vibrating fierce energy, inviting victory ahead. As the final confrontation unfolded, the air pulsed with energy from both sides. The shimmering barrier around Mia, Leo, and the fairies stood strong against the encroaching shadows. The Vampire King roared in anger as he hurled dark tendrils of magic toward them. But each strike met with dazzling sparks of light emanating from their united front. Together, Mia shouted, her voice cutting through the din of chaos. We can do this. The fairies fluttered about, weaving in and out of the barrier, their wings spreading colorful dust that ignited the shield's power further. Leo held Mia's hand tightly, feeling a surge of bravery overcoming his fear as he chanted along with the others, focusing on their shared purpose. The shadows twisted and writhed as they prepared for one final push against the barrier. With a fierce roar, the Vampire King lunged forward, intent on breaking through. He unleashed a wave of darkness that rippled toward them like a storm. Now, Mia cried out, channel everything we have, focus on courage and friendship. As they intensified their resolve, images flooded into Mia's mind. Leo's laughter when they had first met, the joy of friendship blossoming in their adventure, and the warmth of home waiting for them. The thought of Eldergrove filled her with strength. She knew they were, fighting not only for themselves, but for all their loved ones. With one unified shout of, "We stand together," they released all their energy into the barrier. A blinding flash erupted from within as it expanded outward, pushing back against the dark tide surging toward them. The force collided with the Vampire King's attack, creating a shockwave that shook the very ground beneath them. For a moment, time seemed to stand still, as both forces clashed violently, light battling shadow in a magnificent display of magic. Then came a brilliant explosion. The barrier exploded outward in a dazzling array of colors that shattered through the darkness like morning light breaking at dawn. The shadows screeched in fury as they were pushed back by the overwhelming power of love and teamwork. In that moment of victory, however fleeting, it was clear to everyone present that their unity had forged a force too strong for even darkness to conquer. The swirling shadows retreated instinctively, as if frightened by what they could not comprehend. But there stood the Vampire King, still amidst flickering lights, the embodiment of rage at having been thwarted so unexpectedly. "You think this is over?" he bellowed furiously. "I will return." With those parting words echoing across the clearing like thunder rolling away into silence, he melted back into shadows along with his remaining army, their forms dissolving into mist until nothing remained save for a cool breeze rustling through leaves overhead. Mia nearly collapsed onto her knees. Relief washed over her like rain after a long drought, while glimmers danced brightly around her from fairy magic filling night sky above. Leo, too, fell breathless beside her, his exhilaration peppered with disbelief at what had just unfolded before them. "We did it!" Leo exclaimed as he looked up at Mia wide-eyed. She could see pride shining through his expression, despite exhaustion lacing every line etched across his face. "Yes," she breathed out slowly between gasps, still trying to absorb everything that had just happened while taking comfort knowing they were safe for now, a fragile peace settling upon them after chaos reigned moments earlier. The fairies swooped down around them cheerfully. "You fought bravely. Together you showed true strength." One fairy said gleefully, coiling joy around every word spoken like ribbons, adorning gifts wrapped lovingly beneath twinkling stars above. Mia smiled brighter than she thought possible. She felt gratitude filling her heart as well, reminded once again how important friendships truly are, and how much stronger they became when united against adversity. As exhaustion began washing over all present, it also brought clarity. They realized lessons learned tonight spanned beyond just triumph over darkness, but encompassed bonds forged tightly amid challenges faced bravely together. Leo turned towards Mia earnestly now. "What do we do next?" Mia pondered, thoughtfully gazing up at flickering lights shimmering nearby, then whispered softly yet resolutely, "We protect what we love, and let our hearts guide us forward." And so together, under starlit skies, they embraced hope renewed, ready to face whatever awaited them next without hesitation, knowing courage shared led paths bravely onward. After the fierce battle and the defeat of the Vampire King, Mia and Leo found themselves back in the familiar comfort of Eldergrove. The night sky was clear, twinkling with stars that seemed to celebrate their victory. The fairies hovered around them, their radiant wings shimmering in the moonlight, creating a magical atmosphere that felt warm and inviting. "Thank you all for your help," Mia said with heartfelt gratitude, her eyes sparkling with joy. She looked at the fairies who had become such steadfast allies. "We couldn't have done it without you." "You showed true bravery," the lead fairy replied, her voice light like a breeze. "Remember that courage can conquer darkness, and you both hold that within you." Leo nodded enthusiastically. "I'll never forget this adventure. I feel so much braver now." He turned to Mia, his expression filled with appreciation. "And it's all thanks to you." Mia beamed back at him. "We did it together. We make a great team." With hearts full of warmth and newfound confidence, They began the walk back home through the village streets, bathed in soft light from lanterns hung outside each cottage. The familiar sights were comforting after everything they had faced. As they walked, Leo recounted parts of their adventure excitedly. His voice animated as he mimicked the Vampire King's menacing sneer. Mia laughed gently at his imitation, but also felt a pang of pride at how far they had come together. They had faced unimaginable dangers, but emerged stronger and more connected than ever. When they reached Leo's home, he paused at the door, glancing back at Mia with a serious look on his face. "Will we see each other again?" he asked quietly. "Of course. We're friends now," Mia assured him with a smile. "Whenever you need me, just follow the path into the woods. I'll be there." Leo grinned widely at her words, feeling lighter than air as he opened his front door to find his family waiting inside, concern etched on their faces that turned to relief when they saw him safe. "Mama, I'm back," he shouted joyfully as he ran into his mother's warm embrace. His mother hugged him tightly, tears of happiness sparkling in her eyes. "Oh, my dear Leo, we were so worried about you. Where have you been?" Leo excitedly shared bits of his adventure, how he got lost chasing a butterfly, and how an incredible girl named Mia helped him find his way back home while bravely facing off against a terrifying vampire king. Meanwhile, outside, Mia stood watching through the doorframe with a smile on her face. She felt a sense of belonging wash over her as she listened to Leo recount their stories filled with magic and fright. "Thank you for everything," Leo called out as he waved from inside before closing the door behind him, as she turned away from the house and started back toward the woods. Mia felt lighter than she ever had before. The weight of fear that had hung over her during their adventure was lifted as she recalled every moment spent fighting alongside Leo and the fairies. They had created bonds forged in friendship amidst wild adventures, bonds unbroken by darkness or danger. Just then, clusters of glowing fireflies danced around her as if celebrating too, their bright lights twinkling amid shadows formed by towering trees, lining her path through the forest, leading back home yet again. The memories made flashed vividly in her mind. Laughter shared during perilous moments together. Encouragement pulsing through each other's hearts despite overwhelming odds standing against them. Determination woven carefully stitched into fabric, unfurling endlessly onward towards brighter days ahead. With renewed purpose fueling every step forward, the lessons learned resonating clearly within. The journey was far from over. Countless adventures awaited beyond familiar thresholds, beckoning forth new mysteries, calling enticingly along paths woven tight through time, filled near endless possibilities. Reaching a small clearing where blossoms swayed gently beneath star-lit canopies above. She paused thoughtfully, reflecting upon how friendships forged amid uncertainty brought clarity, unveiling truths hidden beneath surface depths, tangled beneath fear's grasp. She would protect those she loved, no matter what challenges lay ahead. And so, under starlit skies, a sense of security settled deep within. Mia embraced hope, relentlessly knowing courage would always guide paths bravely onward, ready for whatever came next.